Hello, dear viewers. You're on the Alien Relatives channel. I present to you a new story. What are we waiting for? Come on, get it, I promised. Zinaida Arkadyevna moved the heavy oak stool aside, plopped down on it from the creaking of an overloaded asphalt paver, and rolled her plump, rounded palm out onto the perfect, glossy tabletop. Her acrylic-covered fingers tapped impatiently against the wood, creating a rhythm like the tap dance of a hyperactive woodpecker. Rita froze, holding a pack of ground coffee. 32 days. Exactly how long it had been since the Legislative Assembly slapped purple stamps into her and Roma's passports, apparently symbolizing the beginning of a long and happy life. "32 days of legal marriage, the last 15 of which my husband suspiciously often discussed financial transparency and cash flow distributions." "Good evening, Zinaida Arkadyevna." Rita slowly placed the coffee on the shelf. "I don't think I invited you, much less promised you anything." Roman materialized from the hallway. In his tight joggers and a t-shirt with some anime print, he looked next to his monumental mother like a fussy fish next to a well-fed whale. The man put his hands on his hips, trying to give his face a stern expression, but only ended up looking like a runaway hamster whose seed had been taken away. "Reed, are you starting?" "I called Mom." "Today is the 10th. Your payday." "You yourself said this morning you withdrew the cash." "I withdrew it." The woman nodded calmly, leaning her hip against the wall. "And a brand new kitchen set, smelling of fresh wood and expensive fittings." $50,000 for Dad. We discussed this before we even crossed the threshold of this apartment. The apartment was a story in itself. Rita's father, Mikhail Borisovich, inherited a 2-room apartment in a good residential area from his mother, Grandma Rita. It was in such a state, as if the rooms had been hosting Dusty Doldrums championships for the last 40 years. Dad, a stocky and solid man, didn't let things slide. He ripped out the old creaky floors, removed the sagging sofas with traces of moths, and took out a hefty loan to furnish a nest for his only daughter. Kitchen, appliances, bedroom with an orthopedic mattress. Everything was bought with Dad's money. The contract was simple. The newlyweds will live in Grandma's apartment for free, but they give Dad 50,000 rubles a month to pay off that furniture loan. Roma nodded so vigorously back then that he almost suffered a cervical dislocation. He had no reason to complain. Renting a similar place would have cost 100. But here, he lives happily and pays his fair share. Until today, until Rita's first paycheck as a married woman. Well, Zinaida Arkadyevna slammed the table so hard the sugar bowl clanked in alarm. Her mother-in-law adjusted her beret, which had slipped down onto her head, even though she never took it off indoors. Apparently, she considered it the pinnacle of her style. "Her daddy gets 50,000 rubles, and I'm his mother. I raised him, didn't sleep at night, fed him and watered him. If your dad gets 50 rubles from your family budget, then I get 50 rubles too. This is called equality for young families. The meaning of this pierced Rita's neurons with incredible radiance. She blinked, turning her gaze to her husband. Roman lifted his chin, demonstrating complete solidarity with his militant parent. Rita crossed her arms over her chest, protecting her space. Are you serious? My father took out a loan for the furniture you sleep on? For the oven you roasted your meat in yesterday? We're paying off the debt, a designated loan. What does this have to do with your mother's financial needs? And like that, her husband flared, taking a step forward, as if trying to use his authority to his wife. Authority worked poorly with a height difference of a few centimeters. We share a pot, a shared budget. Why are you giving your dad a cut from our shared money? I'm giving my money, Roma. This month, you've contributed exactly the receipt for 2 cartons of milk and a pack of toilet paper to the shared budget. Your salary, as you put it, went toward covering your bachelor debts. All the more reason, Zinaida Arkadyevna interjected, her eyes flashing, a built-in calculator clearly visible in them. A family is a family to share. I might want to renovate the dacha too. My greenhouse is leaning. How is my son any worse than your father? Take out the provision. My Ramochka has every right to dispose of your income. The situation was rapidly descending into the theater of the absurd. Rita could physically feel the oxygen molecules in the kitchen changing composition, turning into something thick and heavy. She had no intention of throwing a tantrum, crying, pacing, or appealing to her conscience. That was the lot of victims. And Margarita preferred to be the director. Moreover, the clock on the wall showed exactly 5 minutes left before Mikhail Borisovich's arrival. Father was always distinguished by Swiss punctuality, Rita said slowly, drawing out her words and carefully studying the faces of her relatives. You think that I should get 100,000 now, 50 for Dad for furniture, and 50 for your mom for the greenhouse. Well, if you don't have 100, Roman chuckled magnanimously, sitting down next to his mother and crossing his legs. Then you'll only give it to Mom today and tell your dad to wait. Nothing will happen to him. He's got retirement on the horizon, he's not starving, and Mom needs it more. She took a taxi today, by the way. The smell of insolence in the room became palpable. It hovered between the new hood and the cooktop, settled on both, and soaked into the curtains. Rita looked at the thick white envelope lying on the microwave. It contained freshly withdrawn bills. Zina Arkadyevna was also drilling into the envelope with her gaze like an X-ray machine at customs. The woman even sat up, involuntarily reaching her short fingers toward the cherished goal. Sit down! Rita's voice hit like a whip, short, without emotion, without raising her tone. The mother-in-law, taken aback, she plopped back down. But then she came to her senses and went on the attack, changing her tone from insolent questioning to downright bizarre-like. How do you talk to your husband's mother, little brat? I came into your house, and you're going to tell me what to do. Roma's been through dozens of you back home. He should be glad he married you with your lousy personality. Your husband told you to give him money, so you open your wallet and give it to him. We live in a patriarchy. Roma puffed out his chest proudly upon hearing the fashionable word, although his idea of patriarchy ended with demands for a hot dinner and clean socks magically appearing in the closet. Patriarchy, Rita grinned, gracefully opening the refrigerator door and taking out a bottle of mineral water. She poured herself a tall glass of water, feeling the icy liquid pleasantly cool her throat. Roma, your patriarchy ended the moment you moved into someone else's apartment with everything ready, and for a month you didn't even bother to change the burned-out light bulb in the hallway. Don't change the subject, the husband squealed, slamming his palm on the table. Give me the money. I'm the head of the family. I decide where the surplus goes. Rita took another sip and leaned her elbows on the countertop. There was no longer any anger inside her. There was only a disgusted curiosity, like a researcher observing a mold line, confident that it has taken over the entire world. Surplus, then, she drawled. And if I say that I won't give you a penny, not the surplus, not the base? What then, Roma? Her husband narrowed his eyes. His face acquired that very nasty expression of a petty blackmailer, which he apparently considered extremely brutal. Then, dear Janushka, we will have a huge fight. I will reconsider our future. Is my mother not a person or something? You don't respect her at all. If you don't put money on the table now, I will stop buying anything for this house in the future. You will be the one paying for the utilities. You scared the hedgehog, Rita chuckled under her breath. What are you doing there? Are you mooing? Zenata Arkadyevna roared, switching to ultrasound. The swearing flowed from her mouth with the ease of a spring stream. Ungrateful. You moo her like a human being, and she's still being stubborn. Your daddy gave you this apartment, thinking he's the boss here now. Capitalists. Give me your money while my son talks to you nicely. Rita didn't flinch. She just carefully placed the glass in the sink. At that very moment, the distinctive turn of a key was heard in the hallway. Mikhail Borisovich didn't like to ring the doorbell if he knew he was expected. And he had his own key, the master's. Heavy footsteps down the hallway sounded like the tread of a commander. Rita's father was a man whose appearance alone put an end to any discussions of patriarchy and dominance. Almost a meter tall, with shoulders that barely fit through a doorway and hands accustomed to tightening nuts on heavy machinery. He smelled fresh. The wind, good tobacco, and motor oil. He walked into the kitchen, unbuttoning his jacket as he went, and froze. An oil painting, a stone-faced daughter, a son-in-law resembling a ruffled sparrow, and an immense matchmaker, red from screaming, his mouth open, from which yet another obscene word had just flown out at him. Good evening to the hut, Mikhail Borisovich said in a deep voice, sweeping the company with a heavy gaze from under his bushy eyebrows. I didn't understand. Was it some kind of holiday, or did someone get the address wrong? Zinaida Arkadyevna, not having time to break, blurted out of inertia. and the money grubber has arrived, the giver of poor children. He has come to collect tribute for his firewood, which you call furniture. Mikhail Borisovich slowly turned his gaze to his daughter. His eyes did not read my question, mixed with a slight stupefaction at what was happening in his own lovingly renovated apartment. Rita pushed herself away from the tabletop. It was her time to solo. All the pieces on the chessboard were exactly where she needed them. She walked right up to the table, looked down at her mother-in-law, and then turned her gaze to her husband. She took her phone out of her pants pocket. Face ID worked instantly. The screen lit up, showing the treasured icon with the yellow logo. So I also didn't understand, what other 50,000 is your mother waiting for in my kitchen? Rita asked her husband, checking every word so they clinked in the air like marbles falling onto concrete. Roma opened his mouth to spout another round of nonsense about the head of the family. But Rita abruptly turned the phone screen toward him. She jabbed her finger at the transaction history. Funds credited? Large numbers glowed against a white background, leaving nothing to the imagination. 420,300 rubles. The usual base salary of a senior data analyst and a luxurious quarterly bonus, exceeding all expectations for a successfully completed integration project. A figure that for Roma, making ends meet in sales at a mobile phone store, looked like the budget of a small African country. Her husband's eyes widened so much they threatened to pop out of their sockets and roll across the new matte laminate flooring. His jaw dropped, revealing jagged lower teeth. Zinaida Arkadyevna, stretched out like a goose, also stared at the screen. Her acrylic nails dug into the edge. Countertops. Roman forced out this, swallowing with a suddenly dry throat. Did you get this today? Yes, Romochka. Narita sang tenderly, like a sadist who's caught his victim in a trap. My salary, including bonus, is 420,000. It's pretty good money, isn't it, even for Moscow? Enough for furniture for Dad, a greenhouse for your mom, and new fashionable pants for you. Her mother-in-law's expression instantly changed. The boorish market woman vanished into thin air, leaving behind a fussy, obsequious woman who had smelled big money. Ritochka, my dear. Zinaida sang in an unctuous voice, trying to force a loving smile onto her face, which more closely resembled the snarl of a hyena. So why didn't you say anything, my darling? Of course we're family. What opportunities? Ramochka needs a new car, and I need a back massage. Now we'll settle everything like family. Rita smoothly put the phone back in her pocket. The smile on her face was as sharp as a scalpel. But you won't see this money, she said calmly, looking straight into her husband's darting eyes. The silence that fell on the kitchen was thick and heavy. It seemed you could hear the refrigerator humming and Roman's brain short-circuiting as it tried to comprehend the scale of the financial catastrophe. Dad, Rita didn't even turn her head. She continued to look at her husband. Kick them all out of your apartment. Mikhail Borisovich, who had been standing in the doorway like a giant this whole time, was just waiting for that. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. He didn't lecture on morals. Protecting his territory and his pack was in his blood. The man took 2 giant steps out of Roman's comb. The collar of his stupid anime t-shirt crackled menacingly. Hey, what are you doing? Let go! The husband yelled, trying to brace his sneakers against the floor. But the slippery laminate flooring treacherously offered no traction. Rita's father, without saying a word, simply dragged his son-in-law toward the exit, away from the roar of the bulldozer clearing construction debris. Roma struggled, kicked his legs, tried to hit his father-in-law's hands, but for Mikhail Borisovich it was the equivalent of a mosquito bite. Help, police! Zinaida Arkadyevna turned on the siren, jumping up from her stool. She rushed to protect her darling, aiming her long claws at Mikhail's face. But Dad was ready. With his free left hand, he simply pushed the massive woman aside, so deftly that her momentum sent her flying out into the hallway faster than her dragged along the floorboard. Get out! Barked the father-in-law, accelerating Roman. The husband tried to break free at the very door, swung, but received a heavy, weighty slap from his father-in-law. A ringing slap echoed throughout the hallway. Roma clicked his teeth and instantly went limp, losing the last remnants of his cardboard masculinity. While this physical battle was unfolding, Rita acted at cosmic speed. She darted into the bedroom, opened the closet, grabbed her husband's things, jeans, a hoodie, a collection of stupid caps, a pair of sneakers, and threw it all right on the floor in the hallway. Then she pulled his gaming headphones out of the outlet and threw them in a pile. No neat packing, suitcases. Time waits for no one. The front door was wide open. The driveway hospitably awaited its new inhabitants. Mikhail Borisovich threw them out. With a powerful push, Roman was thrown out the door. He tripped over the rug and fell onto the concrete floor of the landing. Zinaida Arkadyevna rolled out after him, cursing and trying to fix her beret, which had slipped. Don't forget your things, Rita shouted, kicking the mountain of clothes after their owners. The sneakers landed spectacularly, right on her stunned husband's stomach. Dad silently grabbed the handle of the metal door. Read. Roman, sitting on the dirty concrete, surrounded by his scattered belongings, suddenly tried to make a pitiful face. The eyes of a devoted dog who has lost his bowl of elite food. Read, come on. We're a family, we were just joking. Enough, let's talk. I'll send Mom home. Rita looked down at him, feeling incredibly light. As if the smell of rot had disappeared from the apartment. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, she snapped. We'll change the locks right now. You'll show up closer than a cannon shot away. Dad will do more than slap you. The door slammed shut with a heavy, dull thud, cutting off Zinoida's hysterical screams and her son's pathetic excuses. The clicking of the locks sounded like the most beautiful music in the world. Rita exhaled, resting her forehead against the cool surface of the door. The short marriage had ended as senselessly as it had begun. Why would Rita need a husband like that, who brings his mother on payday to extort money for a greenhouse from you, hiding behind high family values? Mikhail Borisovich wiped his palms apart as if shaking off invisible dirt and chuckled. "You're powerful! And here I thought you'd put up with it for another couple of months, getting a closer look." Rita peeled herself away from the door and went to the kitchen. She took a white envelope from the microwave and handed it to her father. "Here, Dad, take 50,000 as agreed." The father took the money, stuffed it into the inside pocket of his jacket, and went to the sink. He grabbed a bar of laundry soap and began to thoroughly wash his hands. "Well, daughter?" he said, drying his hands on a towel. "Tomorrow I'll call a repairman. We'll change the cylinder in the lock, and today, how about we make some coffee for you?" "Did we buy a new kitchen for nothing?" Rita smiled. Her soul was crystal clear. Not an ounce of regret, not an ounce of lost opportunity. Only the peace of mind of a housewife who had just swept the trash out of her house. A perfect evening. The situation was resolved. The money was safe and sound. And somewhere out there, the heroine mother was riding in a taxi, once again counting someone else's money, which she and her son would never see again. Not a penny. M.